So, a while ago there was a show called Point Pleasant, where it was made from one of the producers on Buffy, and I think her name was Elizabeth Harnois, played the Devil's daughter, Christina. Right, so she washes up, a family takes her in, takes care of her. The mom of the family is kind of sick in the head. The family lost a daughter a couple of years ago. The dad of the family has this chick firsting over him, and it's the same chick from Starship Troopers. And I think one of the characters' dad is a rapist. Yeah, a rapist. And it was like a whole thing. Well, God forgave me, son, at the end of the first season or whatever. It was like this whole thing. And it never really got any seasons, or any novels that I know of to expand the universe. It kind of ends with this whole thing where, like, they lose in the first season and Christina goes full Devil's Daughter. And it's like a 12 episode miniseries. Now, the thing is, at the same exact time, Rachel Nichols was doing The Inside. And The Inside was this show about catching serial killers. And it was like a mini season. It was like a 13 episode show. It kind of feels like over the course of 13 episodes, Rachel Nichols kind of merges this shadow side of her personality with her main personality, something like that. Like, there's definitely some sort of dark passenger there in her mind, kind of guiding her. I kind of feel like she was. I kind of feel like they were going for a thing where she was gonna be like, surprise, you have multiple personalities or whatever. And there was this one scene in the show where she's like talking to a suicide hotline and then like pretends really well to be like, oh, I'm so in pain, blah, 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 blah. And then snap, she's back to her old self again. And it's like this creepy, like, sudden shift of emotion and blah, blah, blah. And there was this running joke where one of the dudes was clearly into cross-dressing or whatever, but, like, was super macho and not gonna admit that and whatever. And it was like this show about catching bad guys and serial killers. So 6 years go by, both shows like very good like entertainment, but like they're kind of racy, right? And it's both shows are about here's a hot blonde and here's a hot blonde and here's the scenario, blah blah blah. Right. One's episodic, the other is like developing story, blah blah blah. 6 years go by, and at the same time, you get two hot blondes, like with long hair. One of the hot blondes is in Once Upon a Time, a supernatural show, just like Point Pleasant. Only she's not doing a Devil's Daughter thing. She's doing a surprise Disney princess thing. Kind of, right? Savior of Disney princessdom, blah, blah, blah. And she has a red jacket, and it's like here's a developing story type of show. Whereas the other one, Revenge in Once Upon a Time, Revenge is about a hot blonde with decently long blonde hair, not overly short blonde hair, a hot blonde with decently long blonde hair, right? Like basically being Batman minus the Batman outfit, because she does a villain of the week revenge thing against rich people. And just like in the inside, there's like something really, really bad happened to her in her past, and every villain of the week is kind of connected in spirit to her taking revenge for what happened to her when she was a kid. In the inside, it's like she got kidnapped. In revenge, it's like Emily Thorne revenging her father, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of feels like a weird coincidence in isolation. But then you get to thinking, right? Scream, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxies, and then in 2020 we got COVID by accident. But so nothing really came. But I kind of feel like there's this 6-year cycle in media where every 6 years something. It's kind of like instead of a decade, you have a hexade, right? Like this 6-year cycle, more or less 6 years between here's a new thing, here's a new thing, here's a new thing, right? So in 1993, you got X-Files, right? X-Files. Think about blah, 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 whatever. Then you get The Matrix. Think about the world and how it works. Then you get V for Vendetta, right? And then you get Limitless. And then, like a year earlier than I would have expected, you get Ex Machina. So it's basically like a pattern that I'm imposing on the world of storytelling, but I kind of do feel like there could be like some sort of pattern, some sort of natural cycle in the way that pop culture develops stories and pop culture refreshes stories. And my take is there probably is something like a 6-year cycle, because 10-year cycles don't make any sense. Like, if you go back to the 60s and ask a fashion person, like, you had basically 3 different sections of fashion in the 60s that are homogenized in the past of your mind, right? So it's not a natural cycle to think about things in 10-year cycles. There has to be a more concrete, more specific cycle, like a 6-year cycle. When you're thinking about trilogies, I don't think trilogies come out past the 7th year. I do think 6 or 7 years, and 6 or 7 years, 7 years tends to be about the amount of time someone spends in an apprenticeship, right? Right? So, you start school at around 6. You end at around 18. After you're 12, when you hit 13, you kind of tend to get exposed to a lot of sexual stuff. And you start to get information about this and that and blah, blah, blah. So 6 years as a kid, kindergarten maybe, then 6 years in school. Then you start thinking about getting blowjobs or giving blowjobs and tits and whatever, right? And then there's the 6 years after high school, where you have to be a college person and a postgrad. And then when you hit 25, your brain is fully developed. So between 25 and 30, you're like establishing yourself. Yeah, so like the 6-year cycle really fits as a natural cycle of how culture kind of develops in my mind. Like Spider-Man, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, unfortunately COVID. Before that, you had Scream or whatever. 1984, 1990 was a bunch of, like, kind of a mix of things, right? I can't really think of anything definitive in 1990, but, X-Files, Matrix, V for Vendetta, Eddie Mora and Limitless. Yeah, I kind of feel like there should be, like, it kind of fits. And it should be something that's explored is there like a 2-year, a 4-year, or a 6-year cycle in pop culture? Because I definitely feel like there should be. Like, tell me if you can see this sort of a pattern somewhere. Like, what's your idea of a 6? Maybe your idea of a 6 is like a 4.5-year thing. Maybe it's like a 3-year thing. What is the right cultural cycle for your memory, for your mind?